We had a good week of practice. Tomorrow we'll go through what would be our normal Saturday review, but obviously, it's an important game, and there's a good chance of rain, 54% chance of rain. So the conditions will be important if it's that type of game.
Do you guys are you able to do anything to prepare for that?
We do. Yeah. Look, you do wet ball drills, and you focus on the ball security. We do have a game from last year. If you look closely at like the Ram game that was played with a considerable amount of rain, so you can just get a feel for what the surface there is good, but it just gives you an idea when you're watching that game how it unfolds relative to the weather.
When you talking about Washington playing the Rams?
Washington last year was at home versus the LA Rams in a game that was, with a lot of weather.
Hey Sean, the team's been kind of up and down like the Saints have been. Do you look forward to the bye week, or is that like coming at a good time? Or?
It wouldn't be because we're up and down. In other words, you can't control it, and then the plus would be just relative to a handful of players that are real close to coming back and being healthy. It gives them an additional week. That's where my mind would go with the bye relative to our team. Relative to the consistency and being more, you can't, I don't want to say you can't play enough, but you look forward to the next game to see the corrections and see the technique played better. But I look at it a little bit more as to where we're at, who has a chance to be back versus Seattle, that type of thing.
Jim has talked this week about trying to earn your trust and prove himself in different situations. How does that work with you, just feeling more comfortable? Is it just playing more games, getting more time with someone?
Well, look, some of that is game related, and it's hard to explain, but you're watching a game unfold relative to how's the other side of the ball playing, how are we playing in the kicking game, and that, if you just took a strict analytical approach to third downs and fourth downs, etc., I think the flaw in that would be that there are other outside factors, and that would be, obviously the field conditions, how's the other side of the ball playing. So a lot of that goes into decisions we make, whether they're aggressive or less aggressive. But he's doing a real good job with diving into this week, each week's plan, and understanding initially what we think it takes to win. That could change, and I thought he played well last week. So a lot of that is week to week, just relative to how aggressive we approach a game in any phase, or even in the kicking game.
Was Gibson somebody you remember taking a look at when he was coming out of Memphis, I think last year?
Yeah.
He was kind of a unique player in college.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always interesting to watch these guys. The difficult ones are the players that you knew you had a real high grade on, and you just weren't in a position to draft them. And then it didn't mean they were early picks. It might have been you had a high grade in the fourth round or third round, and then your gut is right and you see him excelling somewhere else, and you hope that it's just in the AFC. And then so I think we, going through the evaluation process, spend a lot of time on these players, and so to see sometimes players end up in a role maybe that was different than you expected is always interesting. That would be something that happens every year, though. That you're paying attention. The ones you don't regret, but you look more out of the ones that you don't feel like you had a clear enough evaluation on, and all of a sudden they're surfacing somewhere as, a really good player, and you're like, man, let me see the reports. Why did we possibly miss that? It's easier to just know. Sometimes you're just going to lose a good player because you weren't in that, you weren't in that position to pick them.
Do you have a stat of the week this week? You had a good one last week.
What was mine?
Last week it was...
Stat of the week. Let's see, this week. I don't have one specifically. What was last week's? Or was it 2 weeks?
Plus,
Yeah,
plus
turnover.
43.
Washington.
Washington.
Yeah, plus 43 turnovers.
1982 Washington.
Oh, that was the all-time record, which
Yeah.
happened to be the Redskins.
Yeah.
Right.
Super Bowl team, right?
It was such a good one last week. I was asking.
Yeah. Well, when Bum came to see me about putting the logos on the field like we do periodically, I thought we were going to, get this like, I don't know. I just thought it'd be an exhaustive look. They have an NFL shield, but this looked like the Whataburger W.
John, how have you seen the offensive line handle injuries week after week, and can you give a diagnosis of how Eric and Teron are doing?
Well, both of those guys kind of fall back to that bye week question.
Yeah.
They're doing well. They're obviously important parts to that group. That being said, man, when we drafted Caesar, there was a vision of center guard, and center has been what he's played most of all his life. He's transitioned there well, and then James is someone that, look, he's just played a lot of football games. Say tackle is where he's played most of his games, and last year, he played guard. So I think it's a position of strength of ours, and that has served us well with two important players being hurt.
With Caesar moving into center, have you seen him and Jameis, I guess, change in meetings as far as the conversations between them?
Yeah, it certainly would be. Look, the biggest thing is just that this would be a considerable, the crowd noise, the silent snap count, the nuances, with 15 years of Drew doing that, and now you have another quarterback, what are the differences relative to your silent snap counts? How many do you have? Like, you don't just always just lift the foot and get the ball. There's, you're trying to offset the crowd noise that the defense can generate, can get a jump on a snap, especially this week with these two ends. So I think there's an awful lot of communication between those two and where the protection's going. And, fortunately, both of them are smart.
Have you seen any growth or improvement from Demario from when he first got in here to now?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mario Davis?
Yeah.
I think our league has seen that. In other words, I think, in league circles, a number of people that I know and, as coaches have seen his growth, not only as a player, but also, man, a really, really important leader, and the confidence. And I've seen a considerable amount.
Is there anything you can attribute that to?
I don't know. Sometimes it's just finding the right culture, and then the opportunity, and then, like I've said before, the confidence. Once that starts growing, then you begin to, where do you see your ceiling? It's probably higher than any one of us in any of our industries see it, and it's hard to visualize that, but it starts happening, and then you start getting hungry for more, and I've seen that with him.
When he's out there, is it easy to forget that he's like 32 or however old he is?
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed that he was 32. Like right now, I don't know what I would have put his age at. I knew he was close to 30, but he's extreme relative to taking care of himself. In today's athlete, I think some of the great ones are like that, but what he eats and everything is, holy cow, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, he'll turn 33 in January.
Been to the stadium a couple times. Is it one of the tougher places to play? I know you've had a few.
Yeah, gosh, the early part of my career was in the NFC East, so that I was at the Eagles for 2 years, the Giants for 4 years, the Cowboys for 3 years. Take those years, times it by 2, and then yeah, I think it is. I think there's a tradition there. I think you do have to deal with the crowd noise. I think the footing is good. This field's new this year, but some years in the past, you might have been dealing with a different type of surface later in the year, depending on when you played them. I can recall playing in games where it was frigid with a lot of rain. There's just so many. They all kind of run together a little bit. But yeah, it's a stadium that I'm familiar with.
This might be a dumb question, but do you kind of like scout the surfaces to know?
We spend a lot of time on the surfaces. There's a few that come up, whether it's Green Bay, Chicago, Pittsburgh. There's a few that come up where you really have to pay attention to your shoes. And there are a lot of our players now are playing on so many artificial surfaces in high school and college, or nice fields like this, that, you know, if you play in the South and you go to college here, you may never have played on an old grass field like in a couple stadiums, but it generally comes up with 2 or 3 stadiums.
And how do you scout a surface? Are you relying on other teams to tell you their experience?
All of it, and film will tell you. If you look at film close enough and you watch the footing, you can see what shoes players are wearing. Generally, the home team is going to wear a shoe that's probably best suited, but I've seen players slip on their own surface. So there's a whole method to doing that, and then we talk about it at the start of the week, and obviously not when we're playing on field turf, or, you know, some of our, you know, Tampa Bay, Carolina, those are all, Carolina switched this year, but, you know, we see a lot of good grass surfaces, but periodically you see surfaces that are obviously more significant relative to what our guys are used to.
Are there a couple that are tougher than others?
There's right away, Green Bay, you have to spend a lot of time on that surface. Chicago, Pittsburgh, the old Candlestick was one. You know, that was grass and it seemed great, but then as the evening went and the tide went up, the moisture, I mean, there are all these conditions that can factor into some of the grass fields, but there are less of those than there used to be. All right, thank you.